today's episode, I sit down with Finn Carlson. We discuss how to apply to work at the United Nations, Finn's experience interning at the United Nations, and the difference between North American and European Model United Nations. Hello and welcome back to MUNcast. I'm your host Aaron, and this is episode 4.
So hi Finn, how are you doing today?
Hey Aaron, I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be on MUNcast today and have a chat with you about Model UN and whatnot. So yeah, doing really great. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm very excited to have you on the show to talk about some of your experiences, and also you're going to be the first guest that has a lot of experience with THIMUN as well as UN for MUN procedures. So I'm excited to explore that avenue.
All right, sounds good. I'm looking forward to talking about it a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start things off with a basic question. What exactly did you do when you interned for the United Nations in New York?
Right, so I was, as I said, an intern with the Education Outreach section of the Department of Public Information. And what I mainly did was assisting the section I was with events, meaning event planning and event coordination, which included working on, for instance, the International Day of Peace, which is celebrated on every 21st of September, or organizing a global Model UN workshop at UN headquarters. And I helped out with planning all these sorts of events. I maintained communications with people who came to these events, updated RSVP lists, and did research and so on. So actually quite a bit. It was a really fun internship. They definitely kept me busy.
I think a lot of people would be curious to find out how exactly you found out or heard about the opening at the United Nations. Like, so how did you hear about this internship opening at the UN?
Right. One large part of it was connections I've made. It doesn't sound fancy or pretty when you say it, but that's how it often goes in today's world, I guess. I've had the opportunity to work with Bill Yudif, the godfather of UN Finland, beforehand on some Model UN related projects. And he actually taught me that because I was under the assumption that the UN only takes master students, so students who are in grad school for interns, but they recently changed that to undergrads as well. So he actually told me that I could very well apply. So what I did, I went to the UN's job portal, inspira.org, inspira.un.org, sorry, and I pulled up the internship description or the internship posting for an internship with the Department of Public Information. And on that platform, you can find all UN internships that are available, and there are a lot of them. A lot of people usually ask me, how did you get this internship? I'm really intimidated by the thought of applying at the UN, but I usually tell them, don't be afraid to apply, because there's so many internship opportunities at the UN. They rely on interns quite a lot. Like during the high times in the summer, there are like 250 interns at a time, so quite a lot. So I pulled up the posting for the internship and applied through the system. You have to provide your personal information, so kind of put together what's called your personal history profile. So the basic information, you have to submit references. So what I did, I submitted as a reference my thesis supervisor and somebody I had worked with on a job in the past, so a professional and academic one. You have to write a cover letter, and then you just send it off, and eventually, if all goes well, you get an email back saying you've been accepted. And it can take a little bit of time because these internship postings are usually posted for like a couple of months in advance, depending on when you apply. Some of them are posted just before, but usually they're at least, let's call it six weeks or so 6 to 8 weeks in advance. So it can take a little bit of time for you to hear back. But if all goes well, then you get an email that says, you've been accepted, you have to fill out some paperwork and accept your position. And then you're set, and then you're good to go for the internship.
The opportunity to work at the United Nations, especially being a MUN nerd, just sounds like an amazing opportunity. And one of the things that you mentioned was that there are a lot of internships, but you also said that it's difficult to get accepted. So is the process itself extremely competitive? What can you tell us about it?
Obviously there are a lot of people who apply for these internships, but then on the other hand, it's not too hard to apply in itself, because I said there are a lot of openings. So if you're genuinely open to the idea of interning anywhere within the UN, then it's not as hard as compared to you being very set on one particular opening. So if you're fine with, for instance, being in the human resources office with one of the departments, then, even though that might be very different from what you studied, then it's much easier to get a UN internship, because if you, let's say, send off 15 applications to all over the UN, you might get interviewed for 5 of them and end up being offered 1, but then you have your UN internship secured. So it's much easier to get a UN internship if you don't really care where within the UN system you intern, because if you are absolutely set on interning with the Department of Political Affairs and its Middle Eastern Affairs section, it obviously gets much more competitive, or the chances of you not getting an internship just off one application is obviously higher than if you send off applications to multiple parts. And obviously there are also internships that are more desired or more popular than other internships. But as long as you're open to, being anywhere within the UN, it should be decently, I don't want to say easy, but it shouldn't be too hard to be able to secure an internship. Because, as I said, the UN really relies on interns for their work.
Do you have any tips or advice, even if you just highlight what you were just talking about, but do you have any tips or advice that you could share with people to help them get a position at the UN, whether it's for a specific department or even if it's just for a general application anywhere?
Great. So first of all, I said before, don't be afraid to apply. It might sound scary to apply with the UN, but don't be afraid. Second of all, really think about, when you write your cover letter, think about what you want to get out of the internship and also what you can already bring to the table. Because they ideally look for candidates who aren't completely without any previous knowledge about what they're doing, but they need candidates who can essentially drop right into the work they get and don't need to, completely start a learning process all over. So also already start telling them what you can bring to the table. And then, and lastly, be yourself. Don't try to make yourself sound way better than you might be. Don't lie about things you have done. Just be honest. Be yourself. And if that fits what they're looking for, you'll have a great time with your internship, and you'll get probably a lot of positive feedback from your supervisors, and they will be very happy with the work you do.
That's amazing. So let me ask you one last thing on this topic of working for the UN. In terms of the connections that you made while you were there and the connections that you still have, do you keep in contact with any of your coworkers or bosses as of right now?
Yes, I do. I made lots of connections, obviously, with other interns, who I guess I could consider co-workers, and I'm in touch with a lot of them. But also, Yeah, I'm still in touch with my supervisors. We exchange an email back and forth every now and then, just kind of see how everybody's doing and so on. And that's something really valuable that you get out of the internship. Besides the experience of working for the UN, you also build these connections, and by continuing to foster these connections, you can make use of them later if needed, and so on. And that's just a great opportunity in itself.
That is amazing. Again, I keep saying that is amazing, but I sincerely mean that. Like, just the fact that there are so many open opportunities to apply for the United Nations, a lot of these I didn't even know of, and the fact that you could gain so much from the opportunity is exciting. Um, would you ever consider working for the United Nations again, whether as an intern or going back and working at the United Nations full time?
Yeah, for sure. That was kind of part of the internship as well for me, to figure out, can I see myself working at the UN at some point? And that definitely worked out, yeah. And I can definitely see myself going back in the future. It's definitely a career opportunity or a career perspective for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of the advice on how to apply for the United Nations, what to bring to the table, and also just your experiences with working at the UN.
Part 2, please click the link in the description or the annotation.